wanted to share my experience of being a person who lives with a chronic disease. And I think it's a really important perspective. And I think when I've met other people with chronic diseases, it's been really helpful for me to, I don't know, not feel alone or to have someone I can connect with in that way. So I think this perspective is really important, and I really appreciate it when other people share their perspective with me of living with chronic disease. And so I wanted to share mine and talk about what my disease is, how I got it, and what it's like to live with it. Because I think you can learn a lot from the doctor's perspective, but I think it's also a very sterile perspective, and I think having that human aspect is really helpful and will maybe be helpful to you in some way, whether to connect as a fellow person with chronic disease or to understand people who have chronic diseases when you don't. So yeah, I just really wanted to share my experience. So I have rheumatic heart disease, and this disease is very rare in the United States of America. There's less than 20,000 cases of it per year, and I have lived in a lot of different states, and I've been treated by a lot of different doctors, and I've never had a doctor who has treated somebody with my same disease. I've never met anyone who has had my same disease. And yeah, so I want to tell you about how I got it, what it is, and I'll start there. So I guess I don't remember much about being a child and getting this, because I got it as a kid. And so for me, it's, I guess, I don't really remember not being this way. So for me, it's different. I think it'd be different for people who got their diseases later in life. For me, it's really just kind of normal. But that doesn't mean that I don't feel loss in some ways. But yeah, this is my normal. I don't really remember too much before that. When I got the disease, I was probably about 4 or 5, maybe 6. I was diagnosed with it when I was 6. Yeah, that's kind of that time range. So what happened is when I was a kid, I guess I got sick a lot when I was young, and again, I don't really remember it too much. I remember I had an ear infection that was pretty bad, and I remember having to take some nasty pink medicine, and they had those tablespoons where it's hollow and clear, and you pour the liquid in until it goes to the number of tablespoons that you need to take, and then it's a spoon, you just drink it. It was really gross. So I remember that, but I don't know, I guess I got sick a lot, and most of the time they were viruses that couldn't be treated. And so, and I'm the 11th child out of 13. So at that point, when I got my disease, it probably would have been the time when my little brother, shortly after he was born, my youngest brother. So, yeah, there were 13 of us, and that, my disease is also, the reason it's very rare is because it's preventable. It's totally preventable with antibiotics. So in developed countries, it's not common to get, but in countries and places with less access to antibiotics, it's a lot more common. And actually, Mozart had my same disease. And anyway, that's kind of, sometimes it's nice to be oh, there's someone I know of who had it, because I've never met anyone or anything. So it's terrible because he died of complications due to. But anyway, point being. Anyway, blah blah blah. All right, whatever. Anyway, yeah. So it was also a common disease back in the day. Again, when in places and times where antibiotics were unavailable or less available. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, so when I got the disease, I had a lot of viruses and a lot of infections and other things. And a lot of those things they couldn't treat. So I got sick again, and they were just like, nah, there's no point in taking her into the doctor again because they're just going to tell us there's nothing they can do. So I wasn't taken into the doctor. And what happens to strep throat is you can also get rheumatic fever. So I got strep throat, then I got rheumatic fever, and then there's a nice little fight between your immune system and these nasty, nasty things. And in that fight, my heart got damaged. So there's a lot of things that can happen with rheumatic heart disease. It can cause brain damage, skin damage, heart damage. What it does is it attacks your tissues, really. So, yeah, what happened to me is it ended up damaging my heart. And so it damaged my mitral valve. And the valves of your heart are like these little doors, these little French doors that pump the blood through your system. They open to let the blood in, and they close and then push up and pump with that pressure. So the mitral valve of my heart was damaged. And later, when I was, I think 14, they also found some damage in my aorta. So I have damage in both my mitral valve and in my aorta because of the rheumatic heart disease, the rheumatic fever and the strep throat. So what happened next is we didn't really know. That's not something that has a lot of symptoms. So nobody knew anything was wrong. And I didn't know anything was wrong. I was just a kid. Oh, I didn't. So what ended up happening, though, is that, again, it can impact your skin. And one of the things that's common is rashes. So I got this massive rash. And this is something I do remember. I don't remember having strep throat. I don't remember having rheumatic fever. I don't remember any of that. And that's kind of a blessing because I don't remember any of the pain. So that's a plus side to getting a disease when you're young, is I don't remember any of that pain. So that's nice. But what I do remember is I remember having just this nasty, just like red rash everywhere, and it was so itchy, and my hands were just they were really itchy and dry. And I also always lived in a dry climate, so everything was just like really dry and itchy, and I would scratch it and it would just my skin was just nasty and bleeding. And I remember it was mostly my hands and then the inside of my elbows, and it was my legs just here was just like, oh, it was a mess. And that was that way for years and years, even after, my diagnosis. That was something that stayed for a really long time, pretty much most of my childhood. So that was really hard. I had these terrible rashes. And here are some pictures from my childhood of me, like at my brother's wedding and, getting a family picture taken. And I'm just itching because it was always so itchy. And, Mom would always be like, stop itching, I can't. So that wasn't fun. That was one of the things. But that, in some ways it was good because that's what tipped us off that there was something wrong. Um, and even afterwards, it was really hard to heal those. And I just had so many rashes for so long. It took a really long time to find out like good lotions. We tried so many different medicated lotions and so many different. I went through a lot, and then my doctor suggested to me the oatmeal, like Aveeno lotion. And to this day, that's like the one that works best for me. And I think the Equate off-brand is just as good. Like, so those have worked really well for me. And I have to put on lotion every night still, like, rest of my life, just to like keep all that at bay. Yeah, anyway, so that was a thing, and that was hard to find something that worked for me, because some of them, especially when you have all those cuts and bleeding from the itching and from the rash and from this dryness, they'd be really painful. You know, like, oh, anyway, yeah, it was not fun. But when I was in school, I think that's why like my science fair project was like I did like trying different lotions and things and trying to find out which one was good or not for my, like, I don't know, elementary school science fair or something. Anyway, but yeah, anyway, the doctors did recommend something to me that worked really well, which was good. But anyway, yeah, as a kid though, that was the first thing to tip us off. And so my mom took me into the doctor, and I had a really good doctor growing up. He was a really good doctor because I have moved around a lot, and I've had a lot of different doctors, and a lot of them have never heard of my disease. And they're like, I don't know, there was this one where I went in and I was like, hey, I have rheumatic heart disease, and I was like, I'd like to set up treatment. Here's what my cardiologist suggests, here's what I need. And he was like, oh, what is this? Like, oh, why do you get this? I'm like, oh. Anyway, so he like didn't know what my disease was. He's like, this is weird. And like, it was kind of funny because then he like steps out for a minute. He's probably like Googling it or something. He comes back in and like tells me something about it where I'm like, well, that's not quite true, but okay. Anyway, so that's kind of funny. So yeah, I've had some doctors that are like, they have no idea what I have, and like some of them they'll like listen to my heart and they're like, oh, I can't hear anything. So it's really good that I had a really good doctor, because he listened to my heart and he heard a murmur. And like I said, like even now going to doctors that are like really good doctors, like my disease isn't common, so they don't know, or but yeah, like some of them just can't hear the murmur. So it's really great that my doctor was able to hear it and say, I think you need to go to a cardiologist. And what a heart murmur is it is an extra sound in your heartbeat. So you've got your normal heartbeat, and then there's an extra sound after, and that's called a murmur. And there are different types of murmur. Like my brother has an innocent murmur, and that means that like there's a murmur, but it doesn't mean anything. It's not harmful. It's not bad. There isn't any like anything behind it. So with mine though, he was like, ooh, yeah, it's a murmur. Go check it out. So I went to the cardiologist, and I have to go to the cardiologist. When I was a kid, I had to go every year. And then I think when I was in middle school, they said it was doing a lot better. It went from kind of like a medium to like a mild case. So I was doing a lot better. So they said I could only come over, like that. I only had to come every 2 years, which was great. And then my 2 times ago, they told me I only had to come every 5 years, which is great. Anyway, so that's good. That's good news. All good things. Anyway, so that's nice. But yeah, when I was a kid, I'd have to go every year. And yeah, I still have to visit pretty frequently to get those checkups. And what they do is they do an echocardiogram. And they have like this thing. And they stick this like nasty, like sticky, like aloe. It's not really sticky. It's like, it is. It's like aloe vera. It's like this nasty, like jelly substance on it, and then they stick it on you and they like press super hard and you're like, oh, anyway, and then they just like use it to to get kind of a map of your heart, I guess. And they look around and see what's going on. They listen. Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you're sitting there and you're laying on the table and hearing the sound of your heart and looking at it on that screen. Anyway, yeah, so they do those. And then they do an EKG, an electric, and what they do is they put these like sticker things that are really gross. It's like little stickers that have these little tabs, and they stick them on the inside of your palms and like inside of your ankles, and they stick like some up here and all around here. Anyway, so they stick them around, and then they have you breathe, and they get about 10 seconds worth of information from that. And yeah, so as a kid, you know, going and getting hooked up to all these machines and having these weird people poke you in weird places was not really fun. But yeah, that's what they do. So yeah, I would do that. And yeah, and they looked at my heart and they said, you've got rheumatic heart disease. So what you had was rheumatic fever, and you know, strep throat and rheumatic fever. And now you have, it damaged your heart. And so your mitral valve that's supposed to be pushing this blood through your heart is damaged. So every time the valves open, it's fine, and then they close and there's a damaged valve, and so there's blood that leaks back through that. So that's where you get a heart murmur, is it's the sound of the blood leaking back. So it's the sound of the pump, so it's pumping it through, and then that sound that's just right afterwards is the swish back of the blood that's not being pushed through, that's instead going backwards. So for the normal heart, it's gonna you know, pump and push whatever amount through. And for me, whatever amount of blood it's trying to get through, there's always going to be less, because there's always going to be a leak back. So my heart can't pump as effectively or efficiently as the normal heart. Because yeah, there's always that leak back because of that damaged valve. And my aorta is damaged too, but it's pretty mild, so meh. But yeah, so they decided what to do moving forward. Is there's not really a treatment for that. I don't get any kind of treatment. There is nothing they can do to fix that except for a valve replacement. And it's not bad enough that they'd want to replace my valves or do an open heart surgery or any of that. And my last appointment, my last cardiologist appointment, is about 6 months ago. And they said, yeah, like, it doesn't look like your heart is hardening or that the valve needs to be replaced. It does. I hope this doesn't happen. I kind of don't think it will, but he was like, oh, I probably won't need a replacement for another like 20 years or so. So I might end up in the future having to have that valve replaced. And I really don't want to have heart surgery. So, you know, I hope it doesn't come to that, but it might happen. And the good news is that it has gotten better than it was. And because yeah, it used to be more medium, and then as I grew up, it became more of a mild problem. So the good news is it just kind of worked out. And my cardiologist was like, maybe the prophylactic treatment we're giving you is actually like helping this. But yeah, I don't know if there's like research to back that up. And he was just kind of like, oh, maybe that's what this is. So anyway, so there's not really a treatment, except for, you know, if it gets worse in the future, and then I'd have to have some kind of surgery. And that would be hard, because there's, you know, in surgery there's also a lot of chances for getting other infections and bringing a lot of crap in. So it's not something I want to do, obviously. But so what I do have and what I have to do is I'm on a Bicillin LA prophylaxis. So what that means is that instead of getting a treatment, I'm getting preventative care for future problems. So I get an injection of Bicillin LA once a month. And that's this shot. I have like some old blurry pictures, because when this is your life, you don't think to like take pictures of this kind of thing because it's so normal. So I don't have like, it's just like my normal everyday life. Like, I'm not gonna take pictures of what's normal. Anyway, so these are the best I have. But that's my shot, and it's an injection that I get in my glutes. So yeah, I have actually, this is my first journal that I had growing up. My very first one. And in my second page, in my first entry, I have this lovely picture I drew of myself, laying on the table and having a nurse injecting me in my patootie with that massive needle, and me crying a lot, because when I was young, I did cry a lot when I got the shot. Anyway, yeah, so it's something I have to get for the rest of my life, and it's to prevent me from getting strep throat again. Because if I get strep throat again, my immune system is not equipped to handle it, as we saw the first time around. Because if I had if it was better immune system, then I would have won. But without any collateral damage. But I'm afraid it didn't work out that way. So yeah, so I got damage to my heart, and now I guess the only thing we can really do is just protect me from getting further damage. So I have to have the Bicillin LA injection every month, and it lasts for the whole month. So it's a large dose that works over time, and it protects me from getting strep. It's specially targeted at the streptococcus. So yeah, I have to get that every month so that I don't get it again and get further damage. So I also, because of that, have to be really careful of germs. I don't share drinks with people. There's a lot of things that I just have to be really careful of. And if a friend of mine's like, oh yeah, I had strep, then it's like, oh, even if you're better, I still need to keep my distance for a while. So I have to be extra careful. And I am glad for a lot of the COVID precautions, because if we can continue doing some of these things in the future, it will help protect me. And I wish that some of these things had been normalized when I was younger, because along with having the chronic disease, because I'm already on a strong antibiotic, whenever I get any kind of bacterial infection or illness, I have to have a different kind of medicine, because normally for a lot of those they would prescribe some kind of penicillin, and Bicillin is the injection form of penicillin. So they can't just give me more penicillin, because first of all, it's already in my body, and if it's not killing it off, then I need something else. And second off, you don't want to overdose or just give too high of a dosage of the same thing. And so I have to have some other nasty crap. So, I wish I could have worn a mask for a lot of my past to protect me from a lot of the illnesses I got, because a lot of the side effects of the things I have to take instead are not fun at all. So, what I have to take is clindamycin, and here's a picture of it. It's this nasty pill. It's so gross. Okay, just taking it is really disgusting. It's got this nasty kind of gelatin capsule it's in, and it's just this powder inside. And this was really hard. This was a hard pill to swallow, it really was. This is not fun. Anyway, It is. It's hard to swallow because it's this like it tastes really gross, and it's like the texture, everything about it is really really disgusting and really hard to swallow. And I had a really hard time with this one when I was a kid. It was really hard. And especially after like getting my injections and stuff, even when I was a kid, I was like, I prefer getting a shot to taking a pill any day. I always have, I always will. It's a lot easier. And yeah, I think it's less painless. I really do. Anyway, so with this, I had a really hard time swallowing this type of pill because it like really just like got my gag reflex. It was really really hard to eat, to swallow. Because yeah, you have to swallow this and then it dissolves and releases the powder medication. So what happened is, because it was so hard for me, what you can do is the doctor just can prescribe it actually as a liquid. So you take it into the pharmacist and they actually dissolve it in water, and then they prescribe how many milligrams or milliliters of the liquid to drink. So that's what happened the first, after it was like really hard for me to take these pills. That's what happened the first bit, is that they just like had it as this like gross liquid, and it's way easier to like drink a nasty liquid than it is to like swallow a gross pill, in my opinion. So that's what we did. We had the pharmacist turn it into a liquid, because the capsule is this water soluble thing, and then just got the powder inside. So if you just dissolve it in water, in the right amount of water, then you can drink it. So we did that for a bit, and then I would mix it with something too, because it was pretty gross, but I could drink it. But I'd mix it with orange juice. I think orange juice is a really good option for like masking the taste of nasty pills, and so that's what I do now. Now I do take the pill form, and I just take it with orange juice, because like water doesn't cut it. with crap that nasty, water does not cut it. You need to have something, especially like I really like orange juice because it's got that nice citrus. It's pretty strong and really is easier. So yeah, I like to take those kind of pills with orange juice. Anyway, and so what I have to do with those pills, or why I have to take those pills, is, yeah, because they're the alternative, they're an alternative antibiotic to penicillin. So they prescribe that for me when I have an infection. And I also have to take it every time I go to the dentist. I have to take 2 capsules before I go to the dentist. So it's 600 milligrams. And the reason is because mouth health and heart health are really strongly tied together. And it basically, especially when I was younger, they only did this when I had to have like more invasive procedures. So like I wouldn't have to do this for cleaning, but if I had a filling, I'd have to take it. Or like when I went to the oral surgeon, which actually I've had 3 oral surgeries, and I had another one recently, and they actually just go ahead and like inject you with clindamycin. So that's nice. I guess that's becoming a more common practice anyway for some of those bigger things. But for me, it's like that's how it was then, but for now it's every time I go to the dentist, because I guess they just stir up a lot of bacteria, and then that can come and cause damage to your heart. Yeah, so you can get some, again, like my whole regimen is really just to prevent damage, like further damage to my already broken heart. But yeah, it's so I do have to be really careful, and I have to take medications before doing something so simple as going to the dentist. So yeah, and kind of with the infections and stuff, the clindamycin is really not fun to take. It's fine for like a 1 dose. Like again, it's like a disgusting pill, but once you like, get your way to take it, and you're like, okay, we can do this. I can swallow this now. But if you have to take it long term for when you have any kind of bacterial infection, it really rips apart your gut. Like it destroys everything. When I was 13 years old, I got my wisdom teeth removed, and they took out 2 of my wisdom teeth, and then, well, 3 of my wisdom teeth, and then they took out 1 other tooth, and they were hoping that my wisdom tooth would like grow into that space. And I ended up having to get that one removed later, but that's another story. I'm gonna have to do another story about like all my teeth crap, because like, yeah, having a disease and then also having like all this like stuff with teeth has just been a mess. But anyway, so this is a fun story. I got those removed, and while they were removing it, while the oral surgeon was doing this, somehow they broke off a piece of a tool and they left it lodged in my jaw. So after the oral surgery, we didn't know a thing, and we didn't find this out for years. It was like it was for years. It took years to find that out. But what happened is after that, I got this terrible infection from my oral surgery because I had a piece of metal lodged in my jaw. Anyway, but we didn't know that at the time. We just had this terrible infection, and I had these giant chickmunk cheeks, and they were bruised and purple and red, and just, oh, it was terrible. They were so big. It was really painful. It hurt a lot. It hurt so much. And I actually wasn't on any pain meds at the time because my mom was like, I don't know, I think she was really wary of pain meds because of like, I don't know, their addictive potential. But so I didn't take any pain meds for any of this. Now I'm like, you know what? I would take the yeah. Anyway, ibuprofen is my friend, so it's fine. But at the time, maybe it was a good choice because who knows what could have happened. But now I think I'd be like, I'll take the things. Anyway. Point being, it was a lot of pain. There was a lot of swelling. There was a lot of things, and so they prescribed the clindamycin to me to bring, to kill off whatever infection was there. And so I did. I had to take it for until the infection healed, and then several months afterwards, they kept me on it. And the infection itself was terrible, and I was down with that for about a month. It was a long time, and it was really, really quite painful. And then yeah, the following months when my face had healed up, but I still had to be on this antibiotic to kill off whatever was left in my body. Because again, like, we can't let that kind of stuff live in my body. It's just going to wreak havoc. So, yeah, so I had to stay on that stuff for a few months afterwards. And it really tore me sick. And, yeah, I couldn't, there was constipation, there was diarrhea, there was nausea, there was, all of that stuff. I couldn't. And it was hard because I just had my mouth stuff too, and so eating was really hard because there's a lot of foods you can't eat, and then there's just painful to eat anyway, and just so I ended up living that summer off of potato soup and Gatorade, and yeah, it was really wretched. Anyway, but yeah, so the infection was terrible, but definitely the side effects of the medication were really, really hard. And I started off my freshman year of high school that way, coming in, having to take these pills and still being pretty sick. I always had to stay near a bathroom. So that was really not fun. That was really painful. So yeah, having to take different drugs that are more that have more side effects is definitely one of the downsides. Anyway, so that was really not fun. And then, a few years down the line, my orthodontist did an x-ray and saw, he's like, you've got a piece of metal lodged in your jaw. And we were like, that explains some things. Anyway, so then my oral surgeon, he removed that piece, so I had to have my second oral surgery then, and he removed that piece of metal that was in there. And he did that for free, which was nice. And that one didn't end up being super bad. You know, it wasn't a terrible surgery. It was still not fun, but it wasn't, you know, they got the piece out, so I didn't have any kind of nasty infection after that one. So, so that was good. But yeah, so that was that. So I guess those are just like some consequences and some things attached to having chronic disease. And then, so when I was 14, my cardiologist added to my regimen. He added lisinopril, and this, it's just 5 milligrams, and it's a nice small pill. It's a daily pill. I have to take it every morning. Well, I did. And you know, at first it was kind of hard to get into, but it wasn't bad after that because it's a nice, pretty easily swallowable pill. Unlike some we could mention. Anyway, it's fine. Yeah, and the reason, so what lisinopril is it's actually a blood pressure medication, which is interesting because I actually naturally have low blood pressure, and I think that kind of runs in my family, is that it's a little bit, well, at least my siblings, it's a little bit on the lower end. But the reason that my cardiologist prescribed this as I got older is because my heart has to work so hard because of the leak back to like pump the same amount of blood through my body. So he prescribed it because he was hoping to lower the pressure, and so that it wouldn't be as hard for my heart to pump that extra blood through. So just kind of lowering the pressure to make it so that my heart doesn't have to like work so much extra. But this was a medication that I hated. I hated this one. And of course I hated Vicodin when I had to first start taking it, because when I did first start, it was actually because I was just a kid, and my mom had just taken me to get some immunizations, and I was like, oh. Anyway, it was like, and she's like, it's okay, you know, like, and like afterwards, she's like, these are the last shots you're gonna have for a long time. Like, this is it, I promise. And then I got my diagnosis soon after that, and it was like, you're gonna have to get a shot once a month for the rest of your life. And I remember my mom felt pretty bad about that. But, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, so I did. When I was a kid, I definitely did a lot of crying when I got that shot, because it's a big shot. It's a really big, thick one. And to this day, whenever I go to the nurse to get my shot every month, they always say the same things. One, she'd always say, that's a big Jose. That's a big Jose. And then there was one, well, just lots of other ones. They're always like, oh, it's really thick, isn't it? And like, wow, it's really big. Yeah, just like, they're always like, oh, it's really big. And like, wow, it's so thick. And like, oh, you're such a trooper. I'm not a trooper. I'm just getting what I need to live. I don't know. It's like, kind of like, whatever. Anyway, so now it's just whatever, and you don't even flinch, and it's just, yeah, just like, get it done, stick me and let me go. But yeah, when I was a kid, there was some kicking and screaming, I am sorry to say. My poor mother. Anyway, yeah, that was probably not so good. But anyway, but like, once I got used to it, it was fine. And I kind of had my own thing when I was a kid, is that I liked for them to give it like really slowly, because yeah, it's really thick and it's a lot to go in at once, and that can be kind of painful. So I had my nurses just kind of slow it down as they did it, so that it was a little bit easier. But then now that I've grown up, like, every nurse just does it however, and it's whatever, it's fine. But sometimes this last month, I've never had this before, but this last month, this girl gave it to me in like totally the wrong spot. It was like, anyway, because it's supposed to be, it's about 2 inches below like the bottom of my hip bone, right in my glutes is about, that's where it should be. This girl, she's like wiping the alcohol all over. I was like, what? You don't need to cover this kind of circumference. And she's just like poking it any old where. I was like, anyway, I hadn't had that happen to me before. But I do have another interesting story that I'll tell in a bit. It's kind of similar. But anyway, yeah, anyway, I did scream a bit and stuff when I was a kid, but whatever, it's fine. Anyway, but the lisinopril, when they added that, it was like, meh. But I didn't like it because the thing is that it can make you really lightheaded. And especially since I already have low blood pressure, it made me pretty lightheaded. And so, like, you stand up and your vision goes black for a second. I don't like it. Again, it has some side effects that are not great. Because, yeah, I'd be, like, really lightheaded and just, like, standing up fast or, like, I don't know, getting out of bed too quickly. Just, like, weird things like that. And you just, like, your vision goes black for a second. Or, like, I don't know, just sometimes red. It's weird. Anyway, I really didn't like it. So when I went back to my cardiologist the second time around, the second time after he had prescribed it, he was going to double my dosage to 10 milligrams. And I was like, please don't. Like, if you double this is going to be so not fun for me. Like, I already have these, like, it's already making me too lightheaded. Like, please don't double this. You're like, oh, okay, all right. So I've stuck on this one. And then when I visited my new cardiologist, because I had my same one for forever until now I have a new one with my, anyway. So he, this is funny because when I went in to see my new cardiologist for the first time, I was like, hey, I have rheumatic heart disease and here's, what I need. I just need to check up on these things. And he's like, well, I've never heard of rheumatic heart disease. Like, he didn't know what it was. And I've had a few doctors that have been like, yeah, I don't know what that is. And, like, I mean, I guess you can't expect all doctors to know. But he was a cardiologist. I was like, I kind of expect you to have, like, some familiarity with this. But he didn't. Anyway, so then when, like, after my echocardiogram, EKG, he consulted with an immunologist. Yes. Anyway, he consulted with him about my treatment. I think it was a pediatric immunologist too, which is interesting. What I guess makes sense because my disease is usually pediatric onset. Like, it happens when you're a kid. Adults don't get my disease. They just don't. And so, anyway, so that was interesting. Yeah, and so yeah, he didn't really know what it was. That was the thing. But yeah, he stuck me on my, I talked to him, he wanted to keep up the penicillin, the bisolinelli injection, and he was like, I don't want you to feel as tied to this. He's like, if you miss a month, that'll be okay, which is good news because I've never heard that before. Because yeah, a lot of the problem with chronic diseases is that they do really tie you down, actually. Like, yeah, having to go to summer stock theaters and thinking about how am I going to get my injection and where, there's a lot. You can't move as freely. You have to always, first time when you move, the first thing you have to do is set up your new doctor. You have to think about how long has it been since my last shot, and like there is a lot that ties you down. There really is. But anyway, I'll talk about that in a bit. Anyway, he, with the lisinopril, he's like, I have no idea where you're even getting this. Anyway, this guy, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have trusted him, but Anyway, I was like, I don't like this. You don't know why I'm doing this. He's like, I don't think that's necessary. And so I was like, you know what? I'll agree with you there. Like, that's cool. I'll stop taking this. I don't like it, so I don't want to. Anyway, so I stopped taking the lisinopril now. So that's not something I have to take anymore. So that's nice. That's really nice because hated it. And to be honest, for like the past 2 years before that, I actually hadn't been taking it. And like, I think you should take the recommendations of your doctor, and if they tell you to take something, you should. But for me, the side effects were not enough to justify the benefits. I was just, I was getting lightheaded, and it was too problematic for me. And so, and I knew that it was more of just a, like, this is just going to make things a little easier for your heart. But anyway, so maybe I shouldn't have made that choice, but also I have no regrets, because it was, I started going back on it again, because I was like, oh yeah, I should, do this before I visit my cardiologist, and like try to get back on it. And I was taking it again recently, and I was like, this is why I stopped taking it. So anyway, so I'm glad that I stopped. Anyway, and then he was like, you can come off this, so that was nice. Anyway, so those are some things for me. And then I guess now moving more towards, I guess, the personal aspects of this, is that it does really tie you down, because it doesn't make you as free to travel. You have to think about where you're going to be and how long you're going to be there, and really, you can't stray too far away from your doctor, because with the penicillin, it's a weird injection, because most people don't get it in the form or the dosage that I do. Most people don't. Like, almost nobody does. So whenever I get that at a doctor's office, I'm the only one receiving it most of the time. I currently am going to like a place that's also an urgent care facility, and so they have the dosage on hand. I'm sure there are a lot of other reasons that they would have that for, some urgent care situations, but otherwise most of them don't have that on hand. Most don't. And so the thing about penicillin, the Bicillin LA, is that it comes in packs of 10s. So that's the only way you can get it, is you have to order a pack of 10. And each syringe, like low end is $175 each. So you can imagine a box of 10, low end is $1,750 right there. And that's low. Again, that's like low. That's with like, with diseases, you coupon clip for medications. You do. And you have to download things like GoodRx so that you can compare the prices of your medications, and see what, get coupons for them. And it's kind of ridiculous, because, but also I'm glad to have, markdowns and stuff. But the money aspect is really brutal, but I'll get back to that in a bit. The point is that you can only buy these things in a 10-pack. And because I'm pretty much the only one who gets this injection, people don't want to buy a 10-pack unless I'm going to use all 10. So I can't get it. There are a few ways that I can get it from a doctor's office, because most of them don't carry it. So if they're going to get it, it's going to be specifically for me, and they want to know that I'm going to have like everything that's in that pack, right? And then, because otherwise it's going to be a waste for them. And it depends a lot on insurance too, of how I'm going to get this. If I'm going to get it through a pharmacy, or if I'm going to get it through that facility and through their pharmacy and then go back and get it, or if I'm, if they're just I'm going to get it through the doctor's office. So there are multiple ways that I'm going to get the shot itself, and I've had to do all of them. So, they'll also like write a prescription, I'll go to a pharmacy and I'll pick up my injection, then I'll go to the doctor's office, and then they'll administer it to me. And so that's always a whole hassle, because again, like, most people don't get what I have. And so if I go to an actual pharmacy, they want to know that I'm going to use up that whole 10-pack. So I can't order just like one or two at a time. Like they have to know that I'm gonna have that whole 10-pack. Otherwise, they're not even gonna order this medication for me, because they don't want to have, this medication, which needs to be refrigerated, by the way, which also makes it really hard to travel with, because then I have to put it, in ice and in a whole insulated lunchbox and all this stuff, and have to make sure that it's not going to spoil during my car trip or plane trip or wherever. And then, yeah, anyway, so that's a whole thing I have to worry about, is like, how am I going to get my shot? Where's it going to come from? And like, am I going to be here long enough to afford the 10-pack that I have to buy? So yeah, it makes especially things like summer stock theaters really hard. But I haven't done that, and what I've done in those circumstances is, those have been times where I've had a prescription for the medication, and then I just get the injection myself, and I refrigerate it, and I take it with me to where I'm going, and then I have to self-inject. And that's a really big shot to self-inject. And the reason I have to self-inject is because even though I have the medication, even though I have the prescription, even though I have notes from my doctors, you can't just go into any doctor's facility and say, hey, I have this disease, here's my prescription, here's what I need, I already have the drug, can you guys please just administer it to me? They won't do that way. What you have to do anytime you get some kind of treatment like that is you have to go and set an appointment with the doctor there, have all those conversations, and then he has to prescribe that for you. And then after that, you come back for another appointment where the nurse administers it. And you can't do that for every single time you visit somewhere for more than, if I'm gone from home for more than a month, I'm going to need my shot. So it makes things really, really hard in that way. And so I did. I learned to self-administer it. I have a friend who's a nurse, and he showed me how to do it. You're supposed to administer into your thigh when it's a self-administration. And I did it once, and it was really, really not fun, because I put it in, and it started like squirting back up. And I was like, ah! Anyway, and I had to inject it like multiple times to try to get all of it in. And I like even switched thighs to like, and it's such a big shot that I like couldn't get all of it. So yeah, that was not fun. And then, but I have done it in my glutes before though, and that was actually a lot easier. But I can only do the right side, and you have to switch sides every month. And so I came up with like a little thing to like help me remember which month, because when I was a kid, the doctor's office would write it down on each of their things, like, and so they'd be like, this time we did right side. So then they just like look back at the previous like records, and they're like, okay, last month it was right side, we're gonna do left side. And my mom also had like a little calendar, and she'd like mark it and stuff, so I didn't have to worry about it. But once I was on my own, I was like, oh, I have to, like, the doctors didn't keep track of that anymore, so I had to. So I made up a little thing. It's oh gosh. Anyway, it's odd to be right, so all I'm left with is evens. So I know that when the month is when the month is an odd month, so like January is the first month, so it's an odd month. So it's odd to be right. So odds are my right side. All I'm left with are evens, so my left side for evens. I know it's like kind of stupid, but like you have to do what you have to do to like remember things and like just keep it consistent, especially when I move a lot, and so I have a lot of different doctors, and I need to make sure that I can always have my things right. So yeah, you have to come up with little things to help you remember, and little tricks like using orange juice, and you have to come up with your own way of living, I guess. But anyway, so, and I've also had my shot in those times when I've been like away from home. I had a friend who had type 2 diabetes, so she was like always or type 1, sorry, type 1 diabetes. So she was always, you know, sticking herself with insulin. And I was like, hey, can you stick me with my shot? And she was like, I got you, girl. And I was like, that's my homie. Anyway, so that's good too. I'm definitely, yeah, had people help me out, which is great. It was really, really helpful. Anyway, but yeah, it is hard because like doctor's offices won't just come and be like, hey, I need my one treatment. Can you, like, they don't accept that. They don't do that, which I think is stupid, because I wish that I could just like be a lot freer to move around or visit places. So yeah, there was a time when I was thinking about doing a study abroad, and I was talking to my doctor, and she's like, well, there is a pill form of your injection that we can use. And I heard about it a bit before, but the reason we don't use the pill form is it's just not as effective. And there's also the Bicillin CR, and I've taken that for a bit, but then we switched to LA because the LA is more effective too. So even in the shot form, there's one that's more effective than the other. And so you want to do what's going to be the most effective, because I want the most protection for myself. So I've never really done the pill. But this last time when I moved, I was talking to my doctor and I was like, hey, can you just prescribe me some of the syringes, and then I'll just, you know, I'll just get them and I'll self-inject. And he was like, what? Like, in the meantime, while I set up with a new doctor, I was like, it's going to be, you know, a few months before I'm going to be able to get my new insurance and get all this worked out and blah, 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 which is, you know, insurance is its own massive headache in and of itself. But, yeah, it's a nightmare. But, yeah, but he prescribed for me the pill form. So he was like, okay, we'll take this in the meantime instead. And I was like, okay, like, that's nice. So these are my penicillin. They are penicillin VK 500 milligram tablets. And I have to take 2 a day. So I'd take once in the morning and once in the evening. For when I can't take my, you know, for when it's been longer than a month since my last shot. And for, you know, like the time in between when setting up new shots. So this is nice that there is an alternative. It's just not as effective, so I really prefer to use the shot whenever I can, because it's not as good, and it's a lot more of a hassle to have to take multiple pills daily than it is to get one injection once a month. But yeah, that's something. So if I go internationally, and I did go once, but it was only for 3 weeks, so I didn't, you know, I just got my shot before and after, and it all worked out. But yeah, I mean, being tied to pills and shots is not, it's not fun, and it does make things hard. It does change some things in your life, and it does tie you down to an extent. And it is always a hassle with changing doctors and getting new things set up and being like, yeah, this is my treatment, and this is what I need, and how can you help me to get it? Yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, I want to talk now about the money. Because I would say with all of the things, like, my heart problem doesn't affect my life too much until it comes to insurance and medical bills. I say that, like, I don't think my illness, my disease, would be a stressful problem for me if it weren't for how incredibly expensive it is. I think it would be fine. I think, like, the pain, the pills, the things, like, and I have some interesting symptoms, like, I do, like, get some heart pain sometimes. It's just, like, this, like, sometimes just kind of, like, sharp thing. Anyway, so there are some things like that, but none of that is nearly as stressful as having to come up with that kind of money, because for a long time, and even now, even though they've legislated that they're like, oh, you can actually discriminate against people because of pre-existing conditions. They still do. They absolutely still do. That's not gone. And yeah, for a while there, for most of the time, I've had to pay for my own shots. My insurance, even if it's like pretty good insurance, pretty much never covers it. So I have to pay for the shot, and then sometimes I'll just have to pay a copay for the injection, like the nurse to give it to me. Sometimes I'll have to pay the whole price because they're like, oh well, that's pre-existing. That's your problem, not ours. Which, yeah. Anyway, so that's about $300 a month I spend just on getting my shot, because the shot itself is, yeah, if like cheap end, if it's one that they've prescribed and that I'm picking up from a pharmacy, I can find the cheapest pharmacy, which is usually Walmart, and get it for low end $175, high end about $200. So it's around $200 just for the injection, and I always have to pay all of that. That's just straight up on me. Then there's the administration of the shot, and that costs $100. And so if you have insurance that's going to cover part of it, they'll maybe cover so that you only have to pay a $15 copay. But a lot of the time, they'll be like, again, like, that's your problem, not ours. So about $300 a month just for the injection. That's a lot. It's quite a bit, and especially, the other, on top of that, you have to have your yearly doctor checkup to renew everything, and then if you're ever sick, you have to have those appointments and all the extra drugs that come with that, and then you have your cardiologist visits, and those cost thousands, because you have the EKG and you have the echocardiogram. Sometimes they even do ultrasounds when I was a kid, if I'm remembering right, and yeah, anyway, and then cardiologists are just very expensive anyway. So it's a lot of money. And one thing I've learned is whenever you get a bill, call them. Call your insurance company. Call the doctor's office that sent it. No matter what, call. Because I would say maybe like half the bills I've gotten have not like gone through insurance properly. Because their communication is terrible. And they are not looking out for you. They're not. They don't care. So yeah, like recently I got one, and I was like, I know that my insurance covers this. And so, and in it said, this isn't covered because of a pre-existing condition. And so your insurance rejected it. And I was like, excuse me? Because yeah, there has been legislation against that. And I was like, why? Like, no. So I called my insurance, and they're like, we didn't get it. I had two insurances at the time that were like overlapping. So then I called the hospital, and I was like, hey, you sent me this cardiologist bill, and it's supposed to go through my insurance, and why did I get this, And they were like, oh yeah. I was like, why does it say pre-existing condition? Like, I called them, and that's not true. And they're like, oh yeah, actually what happened is we sent it to your first insurance, and they haven't sent it back or like rejected it or accepted it yet, so we just sent it straight to you. And I was like, well, no, because you need to wait for them to respond, and then after that you need to send it to my other insurance. So anyway, so a lot of bills, they'll just send it to you when they haven't waited for, because this has happened to me many times. And they'll just send it to you when they're like, oh, we got tired of waiting for your insurance to respond. So we'll just have you pay the full amount. And so, no, you need to call up. You need to call them. You need to follow up. You need to keep records of all the things of like, this is what I know I should be getting. This is what I'm actually getting. Here's what my insurance said that they covered versus here's the bill. Like, you need to keep all those things and compare them every single time. And that is a big headache. It is, especially when you have like monthly visits. It's a lot to keep track of, but you have to, otherwise you're going to be paying thousands more than you ought to be. And yeah, it's really frustrating, and finding good insurance is really hard, and sometimes you don't really have a choice because it's just whatever your employer gives you, and you're like, well, great. So, I don't know, insurance and all of the money and all of the things is its whole nother beast that is really complicated, and honestly the most stressful part about having a chronic disease is that it's the money aspect. It really is. It's a lot to have, to work at a job for what most other people it would be like a pretty good wage. It would be like a pretty good livable thing, but you have extra expenses every month that they don't have, and it's a lot. And so it's hard because your life is just a lot more expensive. So, I don't know, those are the things that were hardest for me about having disease, is just how very expensive it is, and how little insurance companies and doctor's offices like care about like working with you and trying to help you with that. That's really hard. Yeah, that's been one of the hardest things for me. Uh, and I think it's really hard too, especially for people like me who grew up um, in low-income places, in low-income families, and I have a disease that, like, it's much more common it's not common in the United States of America. It's very rare because of the access to antibiotics in America, and a lot of homes in America who are, with abusive families or with low income, or there are a lot of circumstances that can make it really hard to receive medical care here. And I'm not going to talk about my experiences with that. That's another day. But it is hard, and yeah, it's a disease that is a lot more common in Africa, and a lot of the research that I've been able to do to be like, what do I even have? What even is this? It's through, people, humanitarian sites, and, doctors that are helping in Africa, because that's where it's more common. But there are circumstances like that here too. Yeah, I'm that's the thing. Anyway, so it's just hard because it's hard to come from circumstances like that and then feel like it's really hard to get out because you're already set behind because of, I guess, kind of where you come from. And like that's why you have the disease in the first place. And then you're also stuck with added financial drain for the rest of your life that makes it hard to get out of. So yeah, that's one of my biggest difficulties, I think. Well, straight up, not I think, that is. It is. Yeah, that's what's been hard for me. But with that, I want to talk about, there have been some good things too. And I really appreciate a lot the work of fabulous people like Louis Pasteur. Fabulous man, excellent inventions that have really, helped me a lot. And Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin. His discovery has changed my life. And I'm really grateful for that, because it's because of him that I'm able to receive ongoing treatment, and because of him that my disease is not prevalent here. And that's really great, because I don't want other people to have to go through this. So that's awesome. He's one of my heroes, one of my favorite dudes. And also his wife, who helped in that discovery. Yes. Anyway, and then Marie Curie, also fabulous scientist who made some really amazing discoveries that helped us move forward. So those are some people that I really admire because of my position, I guess. And then, of course, my mom, who went to all of those appointments with me. And yeah, I wish I could tell you guys more about my perspective, but I can't, like, they get rid of those medical records after 7 years, and so I don't, there's a lot I don't remember and a lot that I don't know, and since my mom is dead, there's no way I can ask her about some of these things, but I appreciate, yeah, again, I was 11th child of 13, so the only alone time I ever had with my mom was when I was at the doctor's office. Oof. And I like that in a lot of ways was a gift to me to be able to have that time with her. Oof. Anyway, it was precious, and I'm glad that I was able to have that time with her, and yeah, and be with her. Yeah, so that was cool too, to just have that. And I'm grateful for her. And I know that oof, I know she regretted that I got my disease. I know, because yeah, throughout my life she'd be like, oh, if I'd only taken you into the doctor, you wouldn't have to deal with this. And like, it wasn't her fault. She was taking care of all of us and had a lot on her plate, and it was not her. And I know even up until the end of her life she felt bad about that, but it wasn't her fault at all. And I was grateful to have the time I could to spend with her. So there were some good things. And yeah. And then of course I've had some really amazing nurses and doctors that I also really appreciate. Like my nurse Carol and Rebecca and Paula. Those are they're fabulous humans. And it was nice, once a month to like think about like my health and me and what I need to be doing. So it's not all bad. There's some good in there too, and I think, the perspective I've gotten from it has been really helpful too. It's helped me, and I think it's helped me to relate to a lot of other people. And I'm glad for the friends I have that share similar circumstances. It really, really does, I don't know, help me out. Anyway, woof. So yeah, so this is my perspective on having a chronic disease, and kind of just, I guess, the rundown of what it is, the medications you have to take, and how it impacts your health and just your life in other ways. Yeah, I'm not really going to talk about the emotional impact, because I don't feel like it had too much of one on. Like, I know it has, but I don't know that I can like point it out, because I've had it since I was a child. So I don't really know exactly how it's changed me, or like the emotional impact as much in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know that I could tell you those things, because I don't know. I don't remember much of who I was before. I can't tell you those things. So I would love to hear from someone else's perspective who maybe got a disease later in life, and there's other things. So yeah, please share your experiences with me. I'd love to know, because it is important and it is hard. And yeah, anyway, that's my experience. It's what's up. It's the thing. I don't know. But yeah, I wanted to share this partially because of COVID, and that maybe this perspective can help you to, I don't know, consider us high risk people, us, I don't know, maybe make you wear a mask, please. I don't know. It is really important to me, and it does kind of hurt when people are like, oh, I don't want to follow these rules, because it does impact me. And my life does matter. Oof. Anyway, please just do what you can to keep people from getting preventable diseases like I have. That's what I'd like. But yeah, anyway, woof, all the things. Emotions, get under the bed. Go away. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is helpful, maybe it's not, maybe it's whatever, but it's a part of my story and I wanted to share it. So, yeah. Anyway, take care. Thanks.